fans, that stunk.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, Rockies fans, and welcome to Locked On Rockies. This is the daily podcast where we talk about Colorado Rockies all season long and all through the offseason. I am your host for this week, at least. My name is Paul Francis Sullivan. Please don't confuse me with the other Paul Francis, which is your buddy Paul Holden. He's gone, but he will be coming back. I'm adjusting my headset slightly. I'm here to take your order here at McDonald's. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. I am normally the host of the Locked On MLB podcast, but with Paul taking the week away this week, I said I'll step in, and I'm doing at least 3, maybe as many as 4 episodes this week. I know our good friend Ethan Smith from Locked On Pirates is going to be coming up, and I'm going to be doing at least one more episode, and I have a special guest coming up with that with a Rockies expert who has forgotten more Rockies information than I will ever know. Hey, follow us at LO Rockies on Twitter, as long as Twitter still exists. And you can follow me. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. You know, one of the things that happens when you do a daily podcast like this is sometimes you kind of start to prep what the show is going to be like before you hit record in the little program that we have here. And this is one of those weird nights that the Rockies just finished up in Washington, D.C., in that the entire game, I'm telling you, the whole damn game, the Rockies were pretty much in control. And the fact that they won the other day and they had the good series against Miami, they had the good series against New York, things were starting to look like, hey, no, are they going to have a good second half? And then you looked up in today's game in Washington, the Rocks were up, 2-0 early, 4-1 pretty early, and then you had the rain delay. Now, it's funny because there was a delay which kind of killed the momentum, but then the Rockies wound up, they held off the Nationals for almost the entire game. And it felt like a pretty solid effort from the team. They got the double at the beginning of the game, put them up 1-0. Alan Trejo, who I think has 200 hits in the last 2 games, he got an RBI single. They're up 2-0, and then Tovar hits the home run, and Diaz gets a hit, and next thing you know, it's 4-1 in the 4-1 in the 3rd inning, and things are moving along, and then in front of friends and family. You got the Stone Garrett home run. All right, they pulled within 4-2. And then Diaz gets another hit. Diaz drives in another run. It's 5-2. The Nats look totally dead. And I start kind of rehearsing in my head what I'm going to say here on the Locked On Rockies podcast. And then came the 8th inning. And I have a feeling more people are listening to this podcast than we're sitting in Nationals ballpark by the end, because there's the big long rain delay. And let's face it, this is not an NLCS preview happening today. And then he just had it. Heimer Candelario, who will probably be traded. I mean, the trade deadline is a week away, something crazy like that. And yes, a bunch of Rocks are going to be traded, and a bunch of the Nationals are going to be traded. So this was basically like watching eBay. This was basically watching a marketplace for potential trade chips. And Candelario is a terrific trade chip. He's a very good third baseman. I actually thought he was going to be the Nationals representative on the All-Star team. He's a solid hitter, solid third baseman. It would not surprise me. There's talk and chatter about maybe Nolan Arenado might be on the trade block or something like that, because the Cardinals have taken the gas pipe this year. But I think if you're trying to fill a third base hole and you don't want to trade away the farm, or you don't want to trade away all your best prospects, Candelario is like your perfect trade chip, their perfect acquisition because he's going to fill in. He's not going to cost you your biggest prospect, and he will probably not have the pressure of a Nolan Arenado to perform like an MVP. I'm sorry to keep bringing up former Rocky Nolan Arenado, but what are you going to do? This is there's almost something worthwhile in saying that he was traded away to start winning pennants in St. Louis, and now he's on the trade block along with everyone else on the Rocks. But Candelario got a big double, and Joey. But even then, even when they cut it to 5-3, I still didn't think they were going to lose the game. And Joey Meneses came up, and he hit the home run to center field, and all of a sudden it was 6-5. Now, look at. I can't nitpick too much. This is not the Rockies' year. We all know that. And the Rockies have played, I don't know, quite well, thank you very much. They've faced difficult competition. They've held their own. But you take a look at the last two losses they've had in the last, week or so of games. And you had the game against Miami where Luzardo struck out everything that wasn't nailed down, but they had the Grichuk home run. They had the great rally, but then Buddy Black made the stupid decision to leave right field open for Luis Arraez. So yes, they won the series in Miami, but the game they lost felt dumb. Now, the Rockies are going to play an early game. It's going to be in the morning in Colorado when the game is played, the finale of the series with Washington. And the Rockies could very well win that game, of which you have to say, and this is, I guess, the mentality, you have to say, hey, they won the series. They won this. They went to someone else's house and they won the series. They went to Miami and they won the series. If they win tomorrow, they won the series. But they had a chance. They had a chance to sweep Miami. And they had a chance to put themselves in a position to sweep this team, the Nationals. I almost forgot who the heck beat them today. And they lost what felt like a dumb game. They lost the game where they were in control of for the first, 7.5 innings of the game. And plunk, next thing you know, that's a loss. Look I know, again, this is not about are they going to contend. This is not about are they going to pull off another 2007 and have a month where they can't lose. No. But you would like to start seeing them piling up the wins, not winning dumb games. It's the dumb games that get to me. Because guess what? They're probably going to finish in last. They're probably not going to get past San Diego, but you would like to see them avoid like 100-loss season. You'd like to see them not have the ignominious, I can't even say it, record of having triple digits in the loss column or even in the high 90s. You would like to think that one of the potential stepping stones or potential building blocks for this team to go into the 2024 season is to finish the year feeling competitive, finish the year saying, hey, we weren't pushovers, and giving some of their young players a chance to shine. Every team in baseball wins roughly 60 games, loses roughly 60 games. That's 120 games, which means there's 42 games that are the difference. Those are the games that determine whether or not you're a great team or a bad team. And the key is whether it's in early April or late September. Avoid dumb losses. Avoid giving it up. Avoid the teeth grinders. The fewer teeth grinders you have, the ones that, by that I mean the game you go, we had this. Like tonight, like the finale in Miami. Eliminate those games. Every team loses games. The 1998 Yankees, the most complete team I ever saw in my life, they lost games. They won, 114 games, which means they lost a bunch. But you don't lose dumb games. and this felt dumb. Now, fortunately, they have a chance to win tomorrow and get out of Dodge with, you know, with a sense of they won the series for having the day off on Thursday and then heading off to play the Mets, where they have images of torpedoing the Mets season dancing in their heads. And if you've been following the NL East, you know the Mets have lost a few pretty dumb games. Avoid the dumb, and the wins will follow. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Sleeper. Now, look, I'm going to be making some picks about some of the people who I think are going to be coming up big in the next couple of days. Do you know what? Call me crazy, but I think Kiki Hernandez going back to the Dodgers, he's going to wake up and explode. And who knows? Randal Grichuk, he may be getting some big hits for the Rockies, or before you know it, he could be getting big hits for the Yankees. Either way, I am going to be using my Sleeper app for that, because where is it? Here it is. Got it right there. This is the game of chance that allows you to win 100 times your money on daily fantasy baseball. Sleeper is now offering 100 times payout for up to 8 pick contests. Choose as many as 8 players that you like and pick more or less on the favorite baseball stats that you follow: home runs, strikeouts, hits, stolen bases, more. Get your picks right, and you could win big. I should have come big on Pete Alonso. I knew he was going to do something big for the Mets. But do you know what? You give it a shot. That's why it's a game of chance, and it pays off really, really fast. And do you know what? It's safe and fast withdrawals. You can have your entries made in 30 seconds or less. It's pretty easy. Check out Sleeper. What you got to do? You got to use promo code Locked On, and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 30 states, so check out Sleeper today. I said on my normal podcast, by that I mean the podcast that I usually host, a few weeks ago, that I felt that Randal Grichuk was an absolute ideal fit for the New York Yankees. And and that sounds counterproductive, because because there he's not. I mean, look, at Randal is a fine player, but no one is confusing him with no one is confusing him with Ken Griffey Jr. And when you take a look at the Yankees situation right now, basically they're a team that is in an absolute free fall after the loss of Aaron Judge. And it's difficult to say that a player like Randal Grichuk is going to be the type of player who will turn the team around. That being said, I honestly think, and I made this call a couple of weeks ago, because I was looking around trying to see who would be the ideal fit for someone for the Yankees. Now, it sounds a little counterproductive, because the Yankees are incredibly right-handed heavy in a ballpark that's designed for left-handed bats. They have a lot of right-handed bats. But here's the deal. And we saw this today. We saw this in the Miami series. Randal Grichuk is a professional hitter. Randal Grichuk is capable of getting a nice hit every now and also then. And what the Yankees need more than anything right now, even more than left-handed hitter playing this position, they need somebody in their lineup who isn't an easy out. Now that you saw what happened when the Yankees came into Coors Field a couple of weeks ago. I don't care if they got a new hitting coach or whatnot. They couldn't get the big hit when they needed it. And there's constantly, when it comes around, if they had just one more person in that lineup who wasn't an easy out, then they probably would have won a couple of games here or there. They've been playing everybody but the 14th caller on WFAN in left field. Believe it or not, Rockies fans, Randal Grichuk is a gigantic step up. for left field for the New York Yankees. They've been playing Isaiah Kiner-Falefa in the outfield. He's a shortstop. He should be a utility infielder. He should be that person who bobs around and bounces around, plays a little short, plays a little second base. He's been many times the starting left fielder for a team that has images of winning a World Series title dancing in their head and has one of the highest payrolls in baseball. The Rockies are in, more than one source has been saying what I've been predicting for the last few weeks, that Randal Grichuk would be a good fit for the New York Yankees. For that very reason, they need to have a professional hitter in the middle of the lineup. And so as teams are going to pick apart the bullpen, we already saw it with Pierce the other day. Daniel Bard is good as gone. They're going to pick it apart. There are some pieces in there that will work. Now, according to Thomas Harding, who I'm trying to get on this show this week, you're seeing Chris Bryant has been placed on the disabled list. And El Harris, I don't pronounce, Montero is going to be the new first baseman up there. Look at Bryant when healthy, would be a nice potential piece for a team like the Yankees because he can play all over the place. And, money doesn't seem to be a big problem in the Bronx. But, that's neither here nor there. He's out. And he's got injured at the worst possible time. And I think that eventually Chris Bryant will be healthy and hopefully will be able to play that leadership role. And we talked about that with Paul Holden on one of the earlier shows, that, with all the young hitters and all the young players on this team, that maybe, just maybe, it would be the right time to have Chris Bryant be that centerpiece player. And you could make the argument that Grichuk could be too, except when you have a team that's a little bit desperate and they're hanging by their fingernails, the Yankees. Yeah, they swept Kansas City, but they lost the first game to the Mets and they lost badly. They don't look good. And they need to be in a situation where they can, try to get to the playoffs. So maybe, just maybe, the Rockies could put them in a bad situation. It's like, oh, look at that. Not a lot of great hitters are available. And I know you don't have tons of trade chips, but you know what? If they could get one, you're not going to get a blue chip pitcher, but if they could get one either potential starting outfielder or potential starting infielder who's in Double-A or lower, to say, hey, look at you, this is worth it for you. Let's bring it on. They're in a strong position to bargain with this team. And they are a team, it's that most glorious quality you want to have with anyone you're trying to do business with. Desperation and a strong sense of panic. Hey, I want to just talk a little bit about something. If you've not followed my podcast, which is called Locked On MLB, one of the things I love to talk about, and I talk about a lot during the off season when I'm filling in some of the shows to do in the off season, but I tend to do it during the regular season as well. I love to think about the alternate universes, the things that almost happened, trades that almost happened, team moves that almost happened, managerial changes that almost happened, stadium moves that almost happened. That I find those to be extraordinarily interesting because, the foundation of baseball the history of baseball in so many ways is so fragile and could bounce this way or the other, that it makes looking at baseball history to me truly interesting, because so many things that we take for granted almost were completely different. The move of the Dodgers to Los Angeles almost didn't happen. The Senators almost moved to Los Angeles. Team moves almost happened. Babe Ruth was almost signed by the New York Giants. Roberto Clemente was in the Dodgers organization. And if they had handled him differently, he would have been a great Dodgers star. All these different things. And I'm thinking about Denver baseball. Now, for years and years and years and years, it was very clear that Denver was a prime place to put a Major League Baseball team, more so than a lot of other places that have had expansion teams or teams move to them. One of the reasons is a lot of times you see in some of the cities where they put teams, and I'm looking at Miami, I'm looking at Phoenix, some of those places you have large populations, but have populations that are relatively new or filled with lots of people who have um, recently moved there, transplanted from other places in the country. Denver and Colorado has a really entrenched population of sports fans and a population that really identifies with Colorado. Denver is a tremendous sports city. And I know this through I have many, many relatives who grew up in Colorado, and the love of the especially the Broncos runs deep. It's not filled with a lot of people saying, "Oh, I live in Denver, but I'm still a Patriot fan. Or I'm still a Giant fan." Hell, I live in California and I'm a native New Englander, and my loyalty still is with the Red Sox, even though I haven't lived in Massachusetts since Ronald Reagan was the president. So Denver always has been a place that people have had their eye on. In fact, you can go back to there was a proposed third major league in the early 1960s called the Continental League. Branch Rickey was going to be the commissioner of it. And they proposed teams in Houston and Toronto and Denver and several other markets, all of which eventually got a major league franchise of their own. In fact, only one of their potential markets never got a team, which was Buffalo. But the possible emergence of this league caused Major League Baseball to panic and forced the first expansion in first 1961 and 1962. Oddly, Denver was not in either one of those expansions, nor were they in the expansion of 69, nor were the expansion of 77. Now, here's the interesting thing, though. The Rockies became part of the expansion of that took place before the 1993 season, where they finally got their long-awaited fourth team along with Miami, with the Florida Marlins. And one of the things that made it clear that they had to put a team there was you had a stadium, you had Mile High Stadium. It's very hard to expand or move a team in baseball because there are not a lot of stadiums ready for baseball just sitting there empty. There happened to be two back in the early 90s, Joe Robbie Stadium and Mile High Stadium. So the Marlins and Rockies were no-brainers. But Mile High was there for a while and was the home of the Zephyrs for a while. And they almost got a team. Well, two times they almost got a team. And if these two times worked out, man, oh man, would baseball history have been different. The first time that it really got to the point where I had baseball books that I read when I was a kid in the late 1970s that mentioned this potential move. And that was the A's. Charlie Finley was the owner of the A's when they were in Kansas City, and he tried to move them to any city within creation: Louisville, Atlanta, Dallas. Eventually moved them to Oakland, which may have been the worst possible place he could have put them. He probably should have put them in San Diego. I digress. And then they won 5 straight division titles, 3 straight World Series, but then chaos began, and Finley began to panic with the outset of free agency, starts selling off all of his players. But here's the thing people forget. He sold off his players, got a big pile of money, and then started developing another pretty darn good team. Yeah, they lost 100 some odd games, but the talent that was brewing in that farm system was off the charts, and he was getting ready to move. In fact, deals were being made to send the A's to Denver. The Denver A's would have been there starting in 1980. And that would have included a young player who was a rookie the final season in Oakland named Ricky Henderson. The team had a lot of young talent on the team, like Mike Norris, like Tony Armas, who both went on to become multiple All-Stars. But they had Ricky Henderson, one of the 5 greatest offensive players in the history of baseball. I will say that with no compunction. And Ricky Henderson would have come to Denver in his prime. This is 130 stolen base, Ricky Henderson, with some high altitude to go along with it because he was already a 20-some-odd home run person as well. Could you imagine Ricky in Denver? how beloved he would have been in Denver, the records he would have set in Denver. It's unbelievable. I made a calculation, and I don't remember the exact word. It was something like if someone stole 50 or 60 bases a year for 21 straight years, Rickey Henderson would still have the stolen base record of all time. That's what we could have had in Mile High Stadium. But lots of panic took place in Oakland because they were on the verge of losing the Raiders to Los Angeles. They didn't want to lose everybody, unlike now. And the A's wound up staying in Oakland, owned by the Haas family, setting up Billy Martin, eventually setting up the Bash Brothers. No team yet in Oakland. Then the Pirates, despite also winning multiple championships in the 1970s, being a model franchise in the 1970s, started falling apart in the 80s. They fell in the standings, and the embarrassing cocaine trials were happening in Pittsburgh. The team was falling apart. They were playing in Three River Stadium where they couldn't draw flies, and sitting was this market that everyone knew was going to be a success in Denver. And the Pirates tried to work out a deal to move the team to Denver in the mid-1980s. And like those A's, that Pirate team had a generational talent. Barry Bonds, skinny Barry Bonds, base-stealing Barry Bonds, fast defensive whiz Barry Bonds, one of the greatest talents in baseball history, Barry Bonds, would have come and flourished and reached his peak in Denver, in thin air, pre-humidor. Remember when Larry Walker and Andres Galarraga and Dante Bichette and all of them were mashing those home runs? Imagine Bonds doing that. That would have happened in Mile High Stadium. Around the same time John Elway was fighting his way in the Super Bowl, you would have had the Denver Pirates with Bonds in the middle of it. Now, would he have eventually have gone off to free agency like he did with the Pittsburgh Pirates? Maybe. But you would have also have had that beautiful prime in Mile High Stadium. Sadly, both of those realities never took place. The Pirates wound up getting a beautiful ballpark. And the A's, well, maybe they're going to Vegas. We don't know. They didn't go to Denver. Denver got the Rockies instead. And no one's complaining. But man, you could have had Rickey Henderson or Barry Bonds in their prime in Mile High Stadium. But right now you have me in your prime. I'm your pal Sully. I'm going to be coming in for at least one more episode. And I'm Ethan Smith of Locked On Pirates, not the Locked On Denver Pirates, is going to be coming on to do an episode as well. So follow this show at LO Rockies on Twitter, and follow me. I'm your pal Sully. I'm with Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Talking about dumb losses, talking about Randal Grichuk, and talking about what could have been of Rickey Henderson and Barry Bonds. This has been Locked On Rockies for the 26th day of July, 2023. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.